everyone. Welcome. I believe we are live on LinkedIn, and this is the Measuring ROI and Tracking KPIs for Citizen Development Projects. Let's see. Welcome, everyone. Hey, Kody.
Good morning, everyone. Good evening, wherever you are.
Hello. We're going to get started in just a minute, and I'll make the introductions, get a few people here. We are live. Everyone doing well? We're from all around the world at this panel, so we are
still waking up on the East Coast here.
Man, I'll join you, brother.
And we are ready for our weekend, right, Foyin, here in Europe. So we are for sure. All right, we'll get started in just a couple minutes. Okay. Hi, Matt. Hi, Sunil. Ricky, thank you for joining us. Hi, Linda. Thank you for being here.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
She's actually my aunt from Maryland.
Hey, Linda, shout out. Welcome. Welcome. And Matt, always good to see your name pop in. Hello. Great. Thanks for everyone for being here. Okay, so hey, let's get started on this great session. It's, like I said, Friday afternoon for some of us, Friday morning for others. And so we're just thrilled to be here. We've got about an hour of time to learn about measuring ROI, tracking KPIs, and how that all plays into citizen development projects. So we're going to be sharing some success stories and some best practices. And you are all fortunate enough to be joining the session where we have some amazing citizen developers. I am honored to be moderating this panel. And when I saw who the panelists were, I was like, my job's going to be very easy because they are incredible and have a wealth of information. So let me take a couple minutes and introduce who we have on the panel. I'll start by telling you about me. So my name is Jody White. I am a certified project manager. I'm also a citizen developer from way before it was ever called citizen development. My role is in operations, and my passion is about equipping teams and companies with tools and strategies that help them perform efficiently for their operations. And so that's why no code, low code has always been something in my tool set. And I'm thrilled to be part of this conversation in this community as we continue to educate people and companies about the benefits of low code, no code, and how they can bring that into their organization. So I'm thrilled to be moderating this panel and happy to introduce you to these three panelists. So first, I'm going to start with Foyin. Foyin-Bello is a solutions architect with Avanade. And she currently helps and supports customers to drive adoption of low code, no code tools. Before this, she worked with commercial banks where she successfully worked with C-level executives to implement several strategies to adopt the low-code, no-code tools. Fabulous story, by the way. I love that story, Foyin. It's one I've used and told people many times. So if you get the chance to hear that story, please ask her about it. She enjoys speaking and training in this platform and has a large community of women that she has been mentoring and teaching also around the world about no-code development. So Foyin, welcome. Excited to hear about your success stories and things. Next, we have Michael McCullough, who is a citizen development business architect at Amtrak. He's one of the top 5 low-code, which is one of the top 5 low-code, no-code programs in the world. He's regarded as a pioneer in the citizen development industry and has collaborated with PMI to deliver world-class CD material and micro-credentials. Michael is also a wealth of information and has a great background in how to really roll this out inside an organization at an enterprise level. So Michael, it's great to have you on this call and great to see you again too. Kody Johnston. Kody is a nurse I'm gonna, how do I say this, Kody? Informaticist.
Informaticist, yeah.
Informaticist, okay. And Director of Innovation and Analytics in the post-acute healthcare space. So Kody has successfully started technology companies focusing on the low-code technology for enterprise customers. And he now is focusing on the Western healthcare and driving citizen development within Western healthcare. And that is a big mountain to climb, I'm sure. And I know you are doing it fabulously. So I'm glad to have you on board in this call as well. So welcome, everyone. Thank you. I know each of you in different roles, and so it's always fun to see familiar faces. All right, so looks like we're getting some more folks joining. Great. Let's jump right into some of the questions, okay? All right. So we're going to kind of do a round robin approach. I'll ask a question. We'll have each one of the folks answer, give some feedback and give responses, and then we'll jump to the next question. And we're going to leave the last 15 minutes for Q&A. So if you have questions that you post in LinkedIn, we'll for sure come back to those and make sure that they get answered. If they don't get answered during this session, we will make sure that they get answered post-session. So continue to watch the feed on that, so in case we don't get to your question. But please post your questions or comments. We'd love to see them. Okay, Kody, I'm going to start with you. So you ready? Kody, what are some of the key performance indicators, KPIs, that organizations should track to measure the success of citizen development projects?
That is a good question, Jody. Thanks for asking. So, you know, I think in all of us have a different journey in citizen development, right? And a lot of it can be depending on the job sector we work in. You know, for me, something that's been helpful in creating KPIs that specifically measures citizen development is really focusing on two phases as I kind of just categorize it. One is ideas to ideation. And then the second part of that is ideation to deployment. And for us in healthcare, we've kind of defined that deployment, which is at the tail end of that second phase, as a app we created in our citizen development process that's been in the wild for 3 months at minimum. You know, that we can really just, you know, pull some maybe safer quantitative data. But what you can do, you know, because you're going to have a lot of business values, business transformation KPIs, depending on, you know, the goals of the company, that will factor into your citizen development KPIs themselves. And sometimes it can muddy the water a little bit. So using these two phases, it simplified it for me to look at specifically an example in the ideas to ideation, that phase one. We can track simple things that, you know, might be familiar to innovation metrics, like how many ideas have been generated in this specific amount of time. Furthermore, we can categorize these ideas based on the business domains of the enterprise and healthcare and see, you know, which ones are maybe popping off a little bit more. What areas of the business is there more innovation happening, and be able maybe to make some decisions around that. And those are just simple innovation metrics. I think in the second phase, you know, there's going to be a lot of meat on the bone when we're going to track, you know, citizen development KPIs themselves. Some of those are like time to deployment. After we have a solution that a group has come around and, you know, they have the idea, it's been, you know, mapped out to where we can start building it, and IT has approved of it. You know, how long did it take to make it? Maybe another KPI is what level of integration lift is involved in that creation of the product. You know, satisfaction of users, just making it, how many bugs arise. That's when a lot of people sleep on. When you're building the tool, you might not have thought there's a lot of difficulty in building it, but then when you build it, depending on the platform you use it, you know, bugs or something might come up and it might break some things, you know, and those are things you want to track in that ideation to that deployment phase. So that you can learn from them. Because at the end of the day, these KPIs, yes, it's to help drive ROI, but it's also to help you learn how to be better at doing citizen development.
I love that. I love those two ideas. Idea to innovation, innovation to deployment. I think there is definitely things within those. Awesome. Foyin, why don't we go to you? What would you say are some key performance indicators that organizations can track when they're doing citizen development?
Yeah, thank you, Jody. Kody has said a lot about it, so I'll just pick on one or two of them. in addition to what he has said. So the first thing is the time to market. And when I was with the commercial bank, one of the things that helped to sell the system development and helped to drive system development across the organization was the time to market. So if the users wanted the same thing and they went to the pro devs, it would take a longer time, even like not just about the development time alone, but based on the backlog of work that they have and the number of pro developers available. And then if they would come to the local developers, because the demand wasn't very high and it was very easy to build the app, like you could literally spin up an application in a week. That time to market was really good. So one of the KPIs would be time to market. And we know that not all requirements can fit a low-code tool. So if the time to market is not giving that value, then maybe that application shouldn't have been built with the low-code tool in the first place.
Interesting. Oh, that's fascinating. Fascinating. Okay, Michael, to you.
How do you follow up with such great answers? Yeah, I couldn't agree with both of them anymore. I think we're in a phase of citizen development that is growing so rapidly. We're trying to still find like how are we benefiting the enterprise. And I've spoken in lengthy depth with my good buddy Matt Hubbard about this, and really what we're looking at is how are you doing business before, right? If I'm doing business and I have a process, right, and I'm doing it one way, it's going to cost me X, Y, and Z, right? But I implement a new solution. Now, what does it cost me? The other things you can look at is employee satisfaction. And it's such a hard thing to measure sometimes, but really when you then turn around and look at, okay, well, if I have a bunch of upset employees and now they're jumping ship, I've got to recruit new talent and this, that, and the other. So those are costs. I really think it just comes down to what metrics do you want to identify that kind of coincide with your enterprise. It really boils down to cost savings and time to market. So it is a flexible endeavor right now. But yeah, it's what citizen development, what's working for you, what do you want to see?
So Michael, you bring up a really good point that I know in my experience with building apps and doing low code development is finding that baseline of the user, right? Finding the baseline of how much time it's taking the user to do this particular task, right? Sometimes that's really evasive, right? It's hard to know, like how much time do you really spend in an Excel document combining all this information that you've gathered or cleaning up the data. And so how have you, or what do you suggest to the listeners about how to kind of baseline some of those things? Time to market is absolutely, but when it comes to I think the executive team and those folks, they're going to want to say, okay, did this application or this process or solution we implemented, did it really save the time? Did it really save? So do you guys have any suggestions on how you baseline some of those satisfaction, those pieces?
Absolutely. And I think, whenever I sit down with somebody and talk to them about citizen development, because they hear the term and they have stars in their eyes, like, we hear you guys are superstars. And we're like, well, the folks in here do some really amazing things. But I think it really boils down to, and I'll tell them right up front, do you understand your process, right? Because that's really at the root of what we're dealing with here. If I build an application based off of a broken or bad process, I'm just creating a really efficient way to fail again and again and again. So what I ask them to do is go back and identify, what are you doing today? How long does it take you? Who does it? How do they do it? Once you know the current state, then you can start planning for the future and where you want to be in 30, 60, 90, 120 days. So it all comes down to knowing what you do today and how those inputs and outputs affect other folks. Once you have that conversation, then it's time to start talking about, time savings, improvement, KPIs.
Foyin, Kody, any other comments on that?
No, none from me.
I just want to say I fully agree with Mike that's so important. I think to really setting the baseline of like, some of the burden our people have, as I understood the question, is, you know, in healthcare, sometimes we'll get in the back end and we have the capability to really track some of these workflows. And for some of those processes, Jody, which you mentioned, that, you know, there's, you know, it's death by Excel almost. You know, if I had to put quotation marks around it, it's VBA to the max. That's where we need guys like Mike and Foyin to come in and, you know, get that out of here. And that's what citizen development can do. But you know, really getting there and understanding the human-centric factor of those individuals, and you know, really making sure, like, we know what makes them tick. And it's going to be different for every single person, but you can get in the back end sometimes and have that capability to get the workflows to partner with human-centric factors, you know, when we're creating that ROI model and that baseline to compare against. So.
Right, absolutely. So again, I think, and thanks, Matt, for putting those comments in there. For sure, there's lots of things from an IT perspective, but then also from the business perspective of what does the full business, so looking at everything that the business wants to see. Not only how fast can we create these solutions, but how is this really impacting the business user and those frontline folks who are manually doing this work or doing it, measuring all of those things. So taking a look at kind of the full stream, as you guys had mentioned. Great suggestions. Okay, let's move on. Foyin, those ones, I'm going to start with you. What tools and processes can organizations use to collect and analyze data for citizen development projects? We may have already kind of mentioned this kind of in the first answer, but do you have any other tools or processes that you have used successfully to gather some of these?
So looking at some of the points that we had shared earlier on around user satisfaction, I think you'd also know how satisfied the user is from the adoption rates. How often do they use the application? How many people are using it? If you have built an app for 1,000 users and you have only 3 active users, you know there's a problem there. So I work mostly in the Microsoft space, and within the Microsoft space, we have a tool that helps us to track this. So you can see how many users have logged onto the application. You can see the frequency of the usage of the app, and that starts to tell us what the adoption rate looks like, and we know whether we've been, you know, successful or not, if our users are satisfied or not. So that's one example of a tool that can be used to track adoption rates.
Nice, love it, Michael.
Absolutely. So we've got some really neat tools and templates that we've kind of built in collaboration with PMI, Matt, and a few other folks. You know, I always have, again, people start with a baseline of your process. But once the app is developed, once it's kind of in, you know, in production, it's being utilized. I actually built an app that helps people identify, like, okay, what is the standard rate of pay for a person per hour? What licensing do we have? How long did it take you to build the app? Is the app being used? It took you this long to do this task or process before. Now, how long does it take you? And it kind of it calculates that over time, and it allows people to see, like, oh, okay, hey, I actually am saving money here, or giving hours back to the company. It also looks at, you know, so I had a conversation with somebody yesterday who we had an intermediate system that was being used. By using the Power Platform, they were able to get rid of this thing. And so they just entered that in, like, hey, you know, $600,000, as an example, was taken off the board and put back in the pot by getting rid of this intermediate system. So it actually looks at that stuff, because one of the biggest, and I'll say this real quickly, one of the biggest challenges that we all face is, okay, is the juice worth the squeeze? So the executives always want to know, hey, is this program going to be worth it? And they want to see tangible numbers, tangible results.
Yep.
And a lot of times it's very hard to kind of extrapolate employee satisfaction and say, well, look, the employees are happy. They don't care. They want to know results, numbers, you know, things improved. So by being able to show them this early on in our game, I got a lot of support from them. And I just knowing that they were going to want to see that. So it really helped us out.
So you use an app. So Foyin mentioned that there's tools inside the platform that help with showing kind of login rates and where things are glitching and who's using what when. And Matt, you or Michael, you said you created kind of its own interim tool that grabs that information to be able to show kind of dashboarding and kind of show a whole thing. Kody, what about you? Have you used, what tools or processes do you use to collect and analyze the KPIs?
I think Mike and Foyin said it best. It's great. And we do a lot of those things. You know, I think the only things I would add just as recommendations to the group is, you know, for us, the processes we leverage is heavily, you know, PMI created stuff along with Creatio, just kind of, you know, finding stuff as we create our own way of working pertaining to citizen development and tracking it. But regarding the tools, you know, one of my things I just tell people, and it's not the biggest thing out there, is just really use what you have. You know, sometimes in these platforms, to Foyin's point, you're going to have the capability to audit records, to audit users, see what's actually happening from a usability standpoint. But to extend that data, there might already be a tool created by the same platform that can power that data analysis, or something y'all have in-house in your existing infrastructure that you can easily integrate into it to try to get not only, you know, real-time data, but, you know, prospective and retrospective data as you look at the life cycle of the app. And so that would be the thing I would just end on. You know, when you're looking at citizen development metrics, and Noel has a great question in the chat, but try to go through the life cycle of the whole process and then some. Because, you know, if you're not really looking at that whole life cycle, it's going to be short-sighted in the level of data that you'll get, I guess. So
I think that's a great point. And again, it goes back to that kind of holistic approach, right? And think about who your end users, what do you want to see? Who's going to be looking at the data that you're collecting, right? Because that will also inform what questions or what data you want to grab. Like if you're going to be showing this to your C-suite team or your exec team and they're looking for a specific thing, you need to make sure you're looking for that data. And Kody, to your point of just, you know, use what you have. There's also great tools that don't require any development. You know, we all know surveys and Google Forms, and while those might not be the most sophisticated type form and those things, those are good ways to gather information from your users that you might not get from kind of the data that you're seeing inside the platform. So again, there's definitely ways, but understanding the bigger picture. Yes, and Noel, to your question, how long should you allocate time to assess the adoption rate? I think that's a great question. So to the panel, how long do you usually look at it? Is it a 2-week period? Is it 3 months? Is it longer? What do you suggest?
I think honestly, so in my theory with citizen development or any kind of digital transformation is you're on borrowed time. You're always on borrowed time. The scope, requirements, the focus change so frequently. It's all about those small wins. And so if I try to drop a house, you know, in a neighborhood, that's not going to work. I'm going to build it brick by brick, you know, stick by stick. And as you measure, you're going to have times where the value changes wildly. You know, it's going to be, and you have to assess that on the go. So what we were doing, you know, 6 years ago is not even close to what we were doing 3 years ago, which isn't even remotely similar to what we're doing today. So as you assess that usage, you know, now we have Copilot, which is totally revolutionary in building apps. That's going to take off. So our value assessment is going to change from today forward. So I have to look at that. But yeah, I think you just have to look at it as you go. If you notice over, I'd say 6 months to a year that you're not getting any traction, I would ask myself, what am I not doing to display the inherent value in citizen development?
Foyin, Kody, what do you guys feel like? That's great. Thank you, Michael. Foyin, Kody, how long do you usually get to test?
You know, we try to do at least citizen development in a rolling 6-month span. You know, and to Mike's point, you need to pivot. You know, if something's happening and you're not getting the results you want, because you don't want it to fail, arguably. But I think honestly, the time aspect is going to be dependent on the type of data you're looking at and the standardization of that data. In healthcare, you know, it can get a little bit picky because we're in such an evidence-based, you know, I guess, job sector. When we get into data science and a whole bunch of other stuff. So, we try to look at that 6-month time frame and then try to break it down into three-month rolling periods, unless we're looking at retrospective stuff where we might look longer, like a whole year's worth of data, so on and so forth.
Okay. Foyin?
Yeah, so Mike and Kody have spoken to like the whole citizen development program as a whole. So I think I would want to answer based on, say, an application. So how do you what time will you allocate to assess the adoption rate of an app, right? So usually in this, this is another scenario, it will vary. So at the beginning of every application build, what success looks like needs to be defined. So that's very important. What are the expectations of the business users? What does success look like to the business user, to the exec who owns that process? And once that has been defined, then you give an adequate time to assess based on it. So if an executive says, well, what success looks like to me is at the end of 3 months, I would expect 50% or 80% of the people to use this application every day. And then you have a baseline to match against. So at the end of that period, then you go back to say, okay, what's this looking like? And based on what we agreed in the beginning. So that's just giving an answer for an application-based scenario, while Mike and Kody had answered the bigger citizen development adoption across the organization.
No, I love that. I love that idea of you before it even starts. You've already identified that at 2 months out, 3 months out, this is what we expect, or this is what we'll consider our success criteria, and then you can measure to that. So I think that's a really valid point. Thank you for bringing that up. Cool. Okay, so we are coming right along on here. Okay, so Michael, I'm going to kick this off with you. How can KPIs be used to identify areas of improvement for citizen development programs, specifically programs within an organization? So again, this kind of flows to the kind of what you were just talking to, but how do you use those KPIs to see how you can improve the program overall?
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, it's a rolling or moving target. So again, I'm constantly adjusting what I'm looking at. So for example, one of the things that I use is user adoption. Okay. So, I know Foyin, her and I use similar platforms, COE. So we look at, okay, are people actually going in and using this? Or how many trouble tickets is the service desk getting versus them coming to me directly and saying, or our team and saying, hey, we have a question or we have a need. So I will look at, things like that. I will then say, okay, well, hey, I'm kind of getting a lot of tickets in the service desk versus them coming to me, or I see app usage or flow usage dipping. What am I not doing, right? And a lot of times it just comes down to communication. What are we supposed to be doing? What are we looking at? What is this program and how can it benefit us? It's not just about building cool apps. It's about building AI. It's about building ways to store and disseminate information and talk to one another. We're in a great arena to where never before have we been able to actually reach out to all different departments and have these conversations. As a Six Sigma guy and an org improvement type person, one of our biggest challenges was always, well, did you talk to the people that are giving you the information or the product? Well, no, they just give us this and we just assume this is how it came. Well, let's talk. I find that once I engage, then I see those KPIs, it causes me to go, okay, I've been absent, in my Yammer feed, or I've been absent in our monthly roundtables. I need to get back out there, or I need some company emails to go out from our communications team to say, hey, look, this is a really cool program. Why don't you take advantage of it? Or, hey, we have this new thing called the ESI, the Enterprise Skills Initiative, where you can get free certifications. And then I see that stuff start to creep back up. So I just use things like, it helps me be better. Perfect.
Awesome. Kody, Foyin, do you have anything to add on that? Like how can how can these KPIs help to improve programs, not just apps, but just the programs and implementation across the organization? And if you don't, that's okay. You don't have to, don't want to put you on the spot. If you don't, that was a
I was going to let ladies. Trends and patterns. When you're looking, if you're a citizen you're a business architect, part of your job is to find kinks in the armor and to find things that are not flowing well. And it's not the funnest thing to do, but identify the trends and patterns. For us in healthcare, sometimes those are 6-month time intervals to adequately say this is something that's wrong. This is something that needs to be addressed. And you might move quicker to address it, and that's totally fine. Sometimes there's value in just kind of writing it out to see what is actually a issue that your KPIs are saying, or KPIs rather, and then dial in on that trend and that pattern that you identified.
Absolutely. And Sam, Foyin, I want to hear what you have to add to that. And Sam, I do see, welcome to the chat. I see that, and I think your comment is really in line with what we're talking about here. And he says that it's important to have them ensure the KPIs you measure for citizen development are aligned and mapped to the overall enterprise objectives. And I think that that's part of this, and that's part of understanding the bigger picture and doing this assessment regularly and keeping a pulse on what's going on and track and do those trends. I think so definitely key importance, because again, you got to know who your audience is, because at the end of the day, they're going to either say, yes, this is going to continue, or no, this is not. And so you know who your audience is and who your users are on that. So Sam, great point, and definitely does get overlooked a lot of times, because to Michael's point, building apps is actually kind of fun, right? When you get to see that spin up, it's like a thrill. You've just, created something out of nothing, and it's very fun to see, and it's very addictive. So, but that's, at the end of the day, is not all that there is. There's a lot more to it. So Foyin, let me let you jump in. You have any feedback on that?
Yes, just a short one. So the help desk platform or portal is a great place to know how your apps are doing. If in the program you've released a few applications and tons of requests has come in, for that application, then you know that the error rate is high and there is need for improvements in one way or the other. So the architect needs to go back to look at, because something is wrong. It may be something foundational, and maybe something just unique to that application. So those are some of the ways of getting data back against your KPIs.
Perfect. I was just reading some of the comments. So, okay. Yeah. So I know that we're going to have questions at the end. And so Sam, I'm going to hold that question to the end, to the Q&A, so we can get through the rest of the questions. So I see that. And Sunil,
actually, Jody, if I could address that one real quick. I saw that, and it was a super quick one. So Sunil, I actually agree with the latter half of your statement about KPI, time saved, money saved. Everybody does understand that, right? But what I would say is that we're not a traditional business. We're not a traditional service. We actually challenge that and flip tradition on its ear. Tradition has gotten us in a lot of trouble in the past. And so if we look at things and try to measure them by tradition, we're going to fall short. We're going to look at the wrong things. I think it's important to bridge the past of how we've done things, because that helps us go into the future. But I wouldn't say that is the end all of how we should look at stuff.
I fully agree.
Okay, so we have 10 minutes left before we go into the Q&A, and I've got a couple more questions. So one, I want to have a success story. So Foyin, I'm going to start with you on this one. Could you tell us a really quick, fun success story that you're really proud of a citizen development project that achieved some tangible business outcomes? Tell us a quick story on that, and then we'll give everyone else a chance to tell their proud moment story as well on a success story.
Yeah, so this story was the very first project I worked on, and it was basically there are lots of branches across the country, and they had an operational process that they carry out, and when they do, it needs to go into an Excel sheet that will be sent to a supervisor who would approve by email and send to somebody else at the region who would merge 17 or 18 of these sheets and then send to the central who will merge almost 300 Excel sheets. And they spent hours merging Excel sheets, right? So somebody brought the problem to us and we said, wow, this is totally complete waste of time, right? But what we did then was, in order to understand the value at the end of the day, we did the initial assessment to say, okay, who are the type of people that do this? How long do you spend doing all of this merging and sorting and filtering? And what's the cost of these individuals at this particular grade level per hour? So when we got the numbers right, at the end of the day, when we built the app, we're able to go back and say, okay, initially you had X number of people doing this for this number of hours, and this was the cost to the business, right? And then now that we've built this app, this process has been completely, like, all of this has been eradicated. You're literally doing all of this in seconds. And that was like a very good way to show the executives that low code was the way to go, and it sold it completely across the organization. So that's why it's important. Some of the things I talked about before, that initial understanding of the problem, what the process is like, which Mike and Kody has spoken about, and then at the end of the day, you're able to reflect on the numbers and then go back to the business saying this is the amount you're saving in dollars, because of this app that was created. So that's a very simple example.
The time saving for all those people, because now all those people, very smart people probably, who had been buried with Excel documents, now have the opportunity to free up some time to actually do probably work that is maybe even greater for the business, as opposed to just sitting and merging documents. So the time freedom that you gave back to not only the business, but those employees probably was immense as well. So fabulous. That's a great story. Thank you. All right, Kody, how about you? What success story do you want to brag about that where you got to see some really solid business, tangible business outcomes?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just do a super simple one, just for the sake of the group. And it was one actually that just happened recently. So it's the most fresh one. But, you know, we had some issues with some third-party systems regarding financial data and regarding almost like CRM type related stuff. And if you built apps in a system development framework, you know, that's where some of these ideas can shine. And so, you know, this was for this client the first time they have witnessed an app built in a citizen development model. And they were just blown away simply that it took like 28 minutes to develop the app. You know, just something like that can come from no code and low code solutions in the hands of a proficient person, you know, showing them the integration, showing them the tool, showing them how we ideated the solution and how we have product, you know, vision behind this. You know, we're not just creating shadow IT in the midst of everything. But, you know, that was a success story. And to Foyin's point, this individual, you know, this CEO was like, I'm all in. He just saw one example and he was just like, you mean it took you that like quick to build the app and to integrate with our legacy systems like that? And it was just like, yeah. And it was with IT enabling the whole situation as well. So there was that partnership there. And so, you know, just simple success stories. You just never know really what's going to happen, you know, when you're pioneering, when you're tracking these KPIs regarding a citizen development process, and just what years, you know, might perk up.
Love that. And I love the fact that you call out that it's a collaboration with the IT, because I think that is something that so that you're not doing shadow IT in a lot of these things, which I know the courses and the things that a lot of us talk about is, you know, not having more shadow IT. That is not a positive thing. So I think it's great you called out that you did it alongside of the IT team in collaboration with them. I think that's an important piece, and part of all this KPIs and return on investments, because you can't just create the bubble. It needs to be something that has good visibility across the organization. So perfect. All right, Michael, you're up. If you can, we have 5 minutes, and I have one more question after this.
It's going to be a quick
one. Go for it, Michael.
So, you know, we've got our CD team. We're pushing about 5,000 apps right now. And I wish I could give a shout out to every single one of them because they're doing amazing work. I think the one that stands out to me the most is, so 6 years ago, I was asked to come into the company and find a solution to display project results, project status reports from different systems, Excel, Word documents, this, that, and the other, and in a company that was just finalizing a standardized project management process. It was very difficult to find, those candid, straight reports. I had never touched Power Apps before, so having the idea, talking to my boss, who was super supportive, 3 months build time, which included learning some of this stuff, I was able to pull together a basic app and a basic dashboard off of a non-existing process. Over the last, I'd say, 3 to 4 years, we scaled to include risks, change requests, requirements, all these other cool things. Bottom line is, in that 3 years, it was 1.2 million hours returned back to the company. Our executives, our leadership had a very accurate idea of what was happening, what we were and were not doing. And it was $7.2 million in savings returned back to the company. So that was something that was super tangible that I was able then to go, look what we did. We can do more. And boy, have they done more. So
I think that's a pretty tangible business success story there, Michael. Good job. Congratulations.
I love it. Yeah, appreciate it. Awesome.
And again, it goes to just everything you've been saying, that it's an effort across the board, and the fact that your company embraced it and all these companies are embracing it is going to benefit all kinds of people, not just the IT team, not just the bottom line, but those front end users, of which I have seen time and time again go kind of the relief off their back of like, I don't have to spend all this time in, Excel hell, as we all call it. So it helps everybody across the organization and allows people to be creative and find the solutions that, if they say, this is what I'm struggling with, now there's some opportunities for them to be able to say, this is something I am struggling with. How can I fix it along with the IT team, and come in and find a solution, not just for themselves, but probably for other people on their team too. So that's, I think, fabulous. Great stories. And I'm sure we could spend the rest of the hour telling more and more stories about it.
And then some.
And then some, exactly. Okay, so we've got a couple minutes, but Kody, I do want to ask you this question because you have a really great ROI and KPI piece that you've been working on that I think it'd be valuable for our listeners and those attending this. And so I want to give you a few minutes to talk about it and also just share kind of how you came to it. So the question is, how can organizations measure the return on investment, the ROI, for citizen development projects? And you have created something that you've been working on kind of for yourself that I thought might be helpful for the group to hear. So over to you.
And I created a free resource. I'll send it out to the people if we can via LinkedIn. I don't know the best way to do it, but Jody also shut me down if we're running close on time because,
okay.
Yeah, it might be on. But pretty much, so to Sam's question, really looping back to enterprise, goals and operational effectiveness, it factors into this KPI that I've created and I've been testing, and so far it's been showing some really cool stuff when we're presenting to executive sponsors citizen development success, and it's called the technical burden reimbursement metric. That's a terrible name, but that's just what I'm calling it. But what it is, it's a support metric that when you're showing success stories or you're showing enterprise officials or executives that, the decision makers, the cost savings, the time saved, it's a support metric to that mixes in the human-centric factors of individuals in a citizen development process with the operational factors that you have to track. And that's what's important, because when we go to decision makers, yes, we have to honor their time. We have to be quick and to the point. But, for me, I have a conviction. I'm not just going to talk about time saved and money saved. I want to be ingenious with them to show them how their goals of the enterprise are being met. And you start at the very front end of that. For y'all on this call, the business value, the business transformation metrics that comprise citizen development metrics, those are things you can loop to the goals of the organization. For an example, one of my former employers, operational effectiveness was a goal. reducing clinical burden was a goal. There were 5 core tenets that I looped these KPIs to and built this mathematical equation, which I'll try to share with you on LinkedIn. It's not anything crazy. But what it does, it's really powerful in the sense, because what we're finding is that with this technical burden reimbursement KPI, it's directly correlated in a lot of instances in healthcare with the cost savings. So there's a direct correlation involved through multiple times. You're comparing maybe 5 tools in front of these executives. Hey, we have these 5 citizen development projects that have been done, or maybe these 10. Let's look at the TBR score along with the cost savings and the time savings, and pull and ask the questions why. Was it the platform that really helped the equation succeed? Some of the domains of this TBR metric might be like user satisfaction, time to market, scalability, licensure costs, those simple things that can help this quantitative number. But it really helps paint the picture of citizen development more to these executives, and gives you a starting place to talk to those enterprise goals, how citizen development is actually meeting them, and then quantitating it for them. One executive was like, "What's this TBR score?" Showed them the mathematical equation, kind of broke it down what it meant, and what it opened their eyes to was like, "Hey, our people are hurting through operational inefficiencies." Yes, we need to talk on the money side of it, but it led to further dialogue to ask the question why, which we were able to find a gap and then implement based on that gap. And it came just through a simple mathematical equation and asking that question why further with our executive stakeholders. So I'll try to share it. It's nothing crazy, but it's a starting place to be tailored to your enterprise goals and your enterprise outcomes, and find those right metrics in citizen development to tailor that equation. So
I don't know, you might be onto something, Kody. You might have to patent that and make sure you're copyright it, so it could be taken. And sounds like you're onto something for sure.
So one last thing in healthcare specifically. Quality is a big deal, and it's a loss leader for some companies. So for those in the business dynamics, companies will do a loss leader if it means the overall product is going to work. And with TBR, sometimes you might have a low TBR score where, the cost was high to develop citizen development, but our people are happy too. And so just really based on the enterprise goals, people, these companies might be like, hey, we'll eat that cost because it's making our people happier. It's making our company more efficient, and we're meeting our regulation or compliance scenes based on the nation that we might be operating in, and making a safe place for us, our business more. So just things to think about. And I'm going to go on.
And you'll post that in the links after this call, right?
Yeah, it's a super simple document. So y'all run with it, Taylor. Do it.
Thank you for that. So I do know we have 11 minutes left, and there's some questions that are in the chat. And so I do want to make sure we cover that. So let's start with, let's scroll back here. Matt, thank you for all of your comments. I think we got that one. How to ensure that the targeted KPIs are communicating correctly. So this is from Mahi. So the question is, how does one ensure that the targeted KPIs are communicating correctly? How can you do that? Any suggestions? And again, we're going to do real quick answers so that we can get to all the questions. So just one of you pop in.
Yeah. Communicate those KPIs, because everybody's got different ones, to the appropriate people. So what the board thinks about, what the executive branch thinks about, what the directors and so on and so forth, it's all geared towards your mission, your goals, and your company, your objectives. But as you morph down in the levels, they want to see specifics. So an executive doesn't really care about, I mean, they do, but not really employee happiness or individual time saved. They want to see big picture, big money. What are we doing in our instance? What are we doing to better service in our corridors? So you as the architect have to be able to identify who is concerned about what and effectively communicate that to them.
Okay, Mahi, I hope that answered your question. If not, post on LinkedIn and we'll definitely come back in and answer if that is what you were hoping to get an answer to on that one. Okay, so thank you for posting that. Okay. Can you share any challenges you faced with measuring ROI for citizen development projects and how you overcame those challenges? Who would like to take that one?
I can take this one.
Okay.
So one of the major challenges is the lack of data, like we said. So you're trying to do the analysis in the beginning to understand, okay, what the current problem is, so that you understand like time savings and money saved at the end of the day. So sometimes the users may not be 100% clear on your process, how long it takes them, and all of the specifics that you need. So how do you overcome such? You may need to give the users time. Sometimes you may actually need to sit with them and experience the process yourself. And that way you can, by observing them, draw out the required data that you need. And sometimes another challenge you may face is the lack of the appropriate tooling. So probably you're trying to measure adoption rates and you don't have a proper tool that helps you to do that. And so in that case, you would need to ensure that, you know, from the beginning, while you're setting up your seasoned developer program in the enterprise, you know that you can have such tools that can help you track adoption rates, error rates, and so that once you've rolled out, you won't have such challenges. So those are just some of the ones I would like to speak to.
Perfect. Great. Kody, Michael, anything from you on any challenges you faced in measuring that and then how you overcame them?
No, I mean, I'll just kind of, that was a great answer. So honestly.
Okay. Anything else? No? Okay, moving on to the next question. How can citizen developers be involved in the process of measuring the ROI and tracking KPIs? And what benefits can this bring to the organization as a whole?
Kody, you want to go first?
Yeah, man, because I do want to hear what you have to say too. Really quickly, in the application you're building, try to make some quick wins for them to go in and to track like how they feel. You know, put your questions in your app is what I'm saying. You know, somehow, some way, you know, if you can teach them, implement that, and then build a tool that can like maybe track some of those while they're using it, while they're implementing it. I find like that's an easy way to try to get some of that data instead of maybe trying to do these massive campaigns, you know, when trying to involve people into that process. So.
Yeah, that's a great answer, Kody. And I totally agree. For me, it's when I sit down and citizen development is all about us, right? So as the architect, why in the heck wouldn't I listen to the people that are out there doing these jobs? Because I don't know it all. Not even close. So I'm going to listen specifically to every use case to hear what they're looking to solve. That could be a measurement. You know, we were doing you know, time savings and money savings. But then we started looking at quality of work, you know, rework. And these were all ideas that have been implemented based off the things that I've talked to the individual developers. I mean, we have an audit app that it went from literally just transferring a paper form into a digital form, then implementing pictures into it. And now we're using AI to physically identify defects in structural equipment. Quality work right there. And I would have never thought, you know, I mean, maybe eventually, but it didn't dawn on me like, hey, wow, like, so, okay, in the past we were, you know, this is our quality. Now what is our quality level? Boom, through the roof. So yeah, talk to your citizen developers and listen to them. Go against the grain. Be untraditional.
Well, and I think a great point. And I think, Noel, you posted a statement, a comment on the channel that you're seeing a shift from ROI to return on experience for employees who are playing a key role in the digital transformations of organizations. And I think that's I love that. And it's absolutely true. And I think it goes to what we're talking about here is getting that feedback. And plus what you just described, Michael, imagine how empowering that feels for those employees who all of a sudden have brought you this thing that they're struggling with, and now they've been able to solve it with the help of collaborative team and building out and learning new skills. I mean, that is an experience that they will take with them, and it just builds that innovation within an organization and the creativity, and it unlocks a lot of things because now now they've just learned that something's possible, right? This is possible for me to fix this, or to work with somebody to fix it. And that is a return on experience that, Noel, great comment. And thank you for posting that, for sure.
I mean, think about it, right? And kind of sum that up, right? In business, we have, for the longest time, we've been so focused on strategy and goals and objectives and all up here. But ask yourself, have you ever seen an NFL team owner win a game without a team on the field and being properly supported? No. Wars are not won by over here. They're won by the people on the ground. And if they don't have the proper support and empowerment, you're going to fail every single time.
Yeah. Or the channels of communication aren't open, or those kind of things. All of those things, everything that we've talked about, is, I think this is why I love these kind of panels, and why the three of you are so amazing. And again, I know that there's many on this chat that could probably also add their value. We should all, get in one place and, sit and have a chat about it. We could probably go on for hours. So this has been really amazing. There's a couple minutes left, and I was just going to look really quickly at see if there was anything else. Follow-up question. How do you ensure that the data you collect for measuring ROI and tracking KPIs is accurate and reliable? That, I think, yeah.
Can I do just a quick one on that? First, map out your qualitative and your quantitative metrics and isolate them based on what you're trying to do. From that place, then you can have like a dictionary of, KPIs that are being measured, along with the location that you're storing these things and the automations that are leveraging them. Once you have that, that document in place, then you kind of have a little North Star, so to speak, or something to work upon to really track, hey, are these things working? Did a bug happen? Do I need to go readdress this? Do I need to maybe do some SQL, map out, a little bit better, whatever was pulling that KPI. So, but start with those, differentiating those two, because it's going to help you in the long run. So.
Any other comments on that one about how you know that they're accurate and reliable?
Perfect.
Data doesn't lie, right?
Sadly,
it's all in the perspective.
I'm in trouble, man.
Just joking. No. I think, right, if you're using the platform that's tracking the metadata of like when logins are happening and when the logs, and you're checking the security logs and those kind of things that most platforms should provide or have access to, I think that's one way to check it. But I think it goes to some other things that people have said, right? You ask lots of sources, right? You keep asking questions. You keep looking at all the inputs that you're getting from the different sources, from the users, from the platform, from the business, all of it across the board, and bring it together and see what's aligning and if something's way off. I would
if you're not constantly challenging and checking the way that you're doing business, you're missing something. So I always, even if you're a huge success, I always tell people, hey, you better be checking, what you're doing, how you're doing it, because if you're not, you're missing something, and you're gonna wind up failing.
Perfect. All right, we have 1 minute left, and so I'm going to let you each. Michael, that was a closing statement from you. Foyin, quick little closing statement for the group, and then Kody, let you wrap it up too. Go for it, Foyin.
Thank you. So I would say citizen development is a great way and a great digital transformation for every organization, and it's something that we should all be looking into. And what's most important is carry your users along. They shouldn't feel like this is your thing. As a citizen developer, it's actually our thing. So right from get-go, let them get involved, let them understand that this is to help them, so that your resistance from them will be less. And then at the end of the day, whatever project you're working on can be successful.
Love that. All right, Kody. Yeah. Wrap it up here.
As much as ROI, KPIs are in citizen development. Citizen development to me is about your people. And so, really there's some of the people that, will innovate the most in the day-to-day, and they have no idea they're even doing it, in their day-to-day job. Giving them citizen development is a excellent process and path to capture that innovation and ingenuity and then turn it into tangible benefits for the enterprise, and then help people along the way, which is one of my favorite things about it.
Love that. You guys have been amazing. No surprise, because again, the three of you are incredible developers, incredible people, have passion for this. So thank you so much for your time. And thank you for the Citizen Development Week team. You guys made this easy for us and for giving us an opportunity to talk about our love. You guys have done a fabulous job. So thank you so much. And for those of you who joined the call, thank you. If we didn't get to your question, we will go back in and make some comments. And please reach out to any one of us if you have questions about anything. We're all available, and we love to support the community and help this information pass around across the world. So thank you so much for joining us. Thanks all. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Jody.
Bye-bye.